You saw yesterday a little bit about Wisconsin, and I mentioned in my opening of the conference that Wisconsin has kind of been a real leader in terms of Money Smart Week and a statewide campaign. And I've just been continually amazed as to how many partners they have up there, how many planning teams, and that's the creative ideas that have come out of Wisconsin. And it's due in a large part because we have a very solid and great relationship with government up there, the Department of Financial Institutions, as well as the Governor's Council on Financial Literacy. And it's really made Wisconsin what it is today. I enjoy the fact that when I go up there, I'm kind of dubbed an honorary Wisconsinite because I'm up there so much. Although that's kind of an association with the Packers, and that kind of rubs me the wrong way too. So, so I'd say it's a perfect state minus that. But we do have fun up there, and Dave and I always rib each other about that. And I'm not even a Bears fan; I'm a Vikings fan, which sometimes is worse in Wisconsin than. So now I made everyone angry in the room. So, you know, I guess I'll start first with just like my personal story and intro to Wisconsin, and particularly Dave Mansell. You know, in 2006, I think that was the first time we took it up there. We went to Milwaukee, and this was the very first attempt we had to branch Money Smart Week outside of Detroit. So we obviously started here in 2002, and in 2004, since we have a branch there, a physical presence, we decided to roll it out there. Went very well, been going very well for a number of years. And then we said, well, this is kind of popular. Let's see if we can take it somewhere. So Milwaukee was the only place that we took it without a request or demand. You know, we said, let's just see if we can take it there and see if we can gather up organizations and see what they'll do. And we have a lot of community affairs folks that have relationships up there and brought together a group for us. And as you can imagine, this was our very first attempt. I have very crude materials and planning documents, and got together a group in Milwaukee. And we were very hesitant to do a city outside of Chicago because, again, we just don't have any presence there, and leery of how big this would be. So we figured it would be small. And my intention was just to have a very small city effort, very much like Chicago when we started with just 30 organizations, 40 events. And if it wasn't that, that's fine. Even if it was half that, we just needed to get off the ground. But Dave Mansell was there, and he said, no. He's like, for Wisconsin, we think big, and this is too small. So he proposed doing a statewide campaign right off the bat, and I thought he was crazy. I said, this is not going to work. But through the work that the governor had set up with the Council of Financial Literacy, and DFI had already been so entrenched and had done so many things with different groups around the state, that we already had planning teams that are already established. So that first year, we did indeed have a statewide campaign and 5 planning teams that have now grown to 30 plus. So it's just been an amazing ride in Wisconsin. So that's why we've asked them to come today and really share more about how they did that, and perhaps we can look at it as a best practice for a state campaign. So let's get started, and I'll introduce Dave. Dave Mansell is the Director of the Office of Financial Literacy at the Wisconsin Department of Financial Institutions. In this position, he takes a leadership role on all issues of financial literacy and supervises the department's related programs and initiatives. Harvard Kennedy School named Wisconsin Office of Financial Literacy as one of its 2009 National Top 50 Innovations in Government. President George W. Bush appointed Mr. Mansell to the President's Advisory Council on Financial Literacy in January of 2008. He serves as Executive Director of the Governor's Council on Financial Literacy. One of his major accomplishments was his entrepreneurial role in developing the nationally recognized teacher training program entitled the National Institute for Financial and Economic Literacy. Dave resides in Madison area with his wife and 3 children, a native of Appleton, Wisconsin. He's a graduate of St. Norbert College in Business Administration and received an executive MBA from the Wisconsin School of Business. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Dave Mansell.
This is yours. Oh yeah, thank you. A Vikings fan. Can you believe it? Alejo, unbelievable. Well, I think this is just remarkable that we're all here today. The fact that we're here represents the fact that Money Smart Week as a concept really has taken off to a huge success, coast to coast. It's pretty amazing, pretty amazing. We represent thousands of individuals who have come to financial literacy courses. We represent thousands of organizations who have volunteered to just step up and promote financial education. We represent hundreds of municipalities across the nation. And now we represent a critical mass of states. And I think this critical mass of states is going to be the leaders that will show the rest of the states in the nation what to do and get involved with Money Smart Week. Pretty impressive. And so I'd like to publicly thank the Federal Reserve Bank of Chicago, its president, Alejo, and Doug Tillett, Melanie, Tiffany, now the interns. You actually have a team. It's pretty amazing too. So really, for having the vision of what the potential of Money Smart Week could be, and we're seeing it come to fruition, for having the passion and determination for implementing Money Smart Week and helping fund it and keep it alive and grow it. And then finally, for recognizing that individuals' financial decision-making is key to turning our economy. Because when you think about it, we make a lot of decisions every day, hundreds, and most of those decisions have a financial impact. And so if we can incrementally improve those decisions, that's going to help the individual, their family, and in aggregate, it's going to help our society and our economy. So not everyone thinks like that, and so I'm proud to say that we're part of the Federal Reserve District of Chicago because you get that, and we understood that right away, and I think that's part of the reason Wisconsin embraced this idea. Because financial literacy is about expanding opportunities for people. It's about making them more financially secure. It's about giving people the tools they need to realize their own goals for themselves and for their families. That's what it's all about as we go through life and we set our goals and we try to accomplish those goals. So it's very, very important. It's more than just choosing a credit card wisely or the right investment and all that's important. But it's really about what do you want out of life and how are you going to get there. Connecting the A to the B. I think of all the hundreds and thousands of hours that people have spent in the courses that are offered during Money Smart Week, and the thousands of people have been involved in that. It's really, really impressive. And that's in just a 1 week time frame. And so there's a huge impact. But I think the impact of Money Smart Week is really felt year-round. And I want to drive that point home a little bit. And since it is lunch, we have some visuals here. Come along with me on this analogy, if you would. This is a Maersk container ship. And when it was launched in 2008, it was the largest ship of its kind in the world. So what this ship does, I mean, it's so big. I mean, take a look at the red line on the ship next to the water line, I guess they call it. Here's some tourists that zoom by it, and you can see how small they are in comparison to the ship. And so they're looking up at this giant multi-story building, basically, that goes on for blocks. This thing can hold 11,000 containers. So containers are those things that semis are driving around the highways. So think of it as 11,000 school buses on one ship. Amazing. So in order for this thing to work, you have to have a crew that has different specialties. You have a crew up on the captain's deck making sure the navigations work. You have a crew down by where all the motors are, making sure that works. You have maintenance and on and on and on. You have the accountants who even made this thing financially feasible. So this thing is massive. It involves a lot of people, but they're all working towards one goal, and so they can steer this ship across the ocean and set that course and make it happen. So it's pretty impressive. So who actually guides the ship before it leaves or just before it docks? Who leads this ship on a new course? How does it change course? Because once that momentum's going and that thing's moving, it's moving. So who sets that? Well, it's the mighty tugboat. The tugboat, or one tugboat or its friends, can come along, and it's obviously way, way smaller than this giant ship. but it's very persistent, it's powerful, and it can guide this ship to a new course, a new way, a different place. And so that's what I think we all are in some respects. We're this tugboats. We're people who guide and lead our communities. The ship is representing our community. It's a massive, complex organization that goes down a path and serves its citizens. But who makes change for that? And that's us. And so Money Smart Week is way bigger than just that one week or that one presentation. It's about bringing planning teams together, bringing people in the community together that probably have never sat together at a table, a credit union, a bank, the school board member, someone from the mayor's office, a utility, Girl Scouts, whatever, and they're all coming together to talk about how can we make our community more financially fit. And that alone, bringing those people together, they meet each other, they get to understand what each other does in their community, and from there, I've seen over the 5 years we've been doing a statewide campaign, amazing what I call ripple effects that go way beyond Money Smart Week. Of course, we're focused on financial literacy, and so people get to thinking, you know, maybe there's a school board member who's like, you know, I've been hearing about this Money Smart Week thing. What's that all about? Maybe we should be teaching financial literacy in our schools. Not only that, maybe we should require it. Boy, that's kind of important. I thought we did teach it in our schools. Maybe we should, before we release prisoners from correctional institutions, maybe we should give them some life skills about personal finance. Wouldn't that be important? So those kind of conversations happen. And I want to take a quick tangent because we have a national award winner here. I'll put you on the spot, Lisa, if you don't mind. You might have met Lisa Aronson. Raise your hand. Yesterday. I just read the press release this week, although I think you got the award in July at a national conference with about 500 people. So you've been very modest. Lisa's been working in the correctional institutions in Wisconsin, is recognized as the 2011 Advocate for our nation. She received the award from the Correctional Educational Association. In what city did you get that? Cleveland? West Virginia. West Virginia, they're here too. So, well, congratulations to you, Lisa. I just read the press release there. Did you do that kind of work before or after Money Smart Week? After Money Smart Week. What's that?
It was at the institute that I met Sharon.
Yes, right, Sharon Abel. That's right. So that's the idea. Maybe we talk about, in Money Smart Week, we'll talk about the colleges or extension, or maybe it's with utilities that get involved with financial literacy. So those conversations happen. They continue on well beyond the week. So that's my pitch for why Money Smart Week is critical to do. It's not just a nice thing to do, it's what we need to do in our nation, and the Chicago Federal Reserve has figured out a really handy-dandy way to get people to all focus on their own financial fitness and in their communities. So I think it's brilliant and it's working. So one thing Alejo kind of touched on and wanted me to talk real briefly, overview of how we got started. And so I'm going to have a couple of themes, and one theme is get started. Try it. So if you go to a community, we would set up a meeting and say, you guys, why don't you come to this? I'm state government, so I have no turf in this battle or anything. Just come to this meeting, let's talk about this. And people would come and they'd listen and say, yeah, try it. So, and we did. In Wisconsin, I think it was Jerry Boyle was on the governor's council back in the day, and now Alejo is on the council. Said, you want to try this? And we're just like, yeah, we do. This would be really neat. And so we thought, okay, we had about 3 communities in my mind who would glob onto this right away. And then we thought, well, why don't we have like a membership drive or a rally, and we'll have it at the governor's executive residence. Another theme, state government. State government's in everything. It's all over your state. It's involved in practically birth to gray, basically. So if you haven't engaged your state government, it's a missed opportunity. There are a lot of different agencies. You can use your governor or secretary of state or treasurer or some government celebrity to kind of say, okay, we could create a council. Well, we created a council. And so we were able to say, okay, we're going to go statewide with this idea. Yes, you can use the governor's executive residence for membership drive. And so what we did, I just went through our lobbyist book, because if you're an organization and you're big enough or whatever and you have a lobbyist or you contract one, you'll be in this big giant book. So I just went down there and we got 200 people, 200 different organizations we thought, they might be interested. It could be a library, it could be a bank, a credit union, a utility, whoever. And so we sent a letter, a very nice invitation, very classy, and we sent it to the presidents or CEOs, executive directors of any of these groups, and we invited them to the governor's residence. And if you get an invitation like this to come to the governor's residence, you're going to come or send somebody that will. So we filled the whole place. And we had First Lady of Wisconsin that was there to put the pitch out and say, you know what, we want to do this for our state. Will you help us and help each other? Obviously, there's a lot of visibility opportunities for anybody involved, but that's not what this is about. This is for our state. And so we had a sign-up sheet and forms, and people could put their contact information. They could sign up right on the spot. Or, if they weren't the decision maker, they could bring it back to their organization. And so that really catapulted this thing a lot quicker, I think, because it had the moniker of this is sanctioned by the state. So when people come to a Money Smart Week event, they know they're not going to be sold something or arm twisted into something or whatever. They know that this is going to be unbiased financial literacy information. So that's my themes. Get started, involve the state government, and by doing it, we didn't realize, but we had 3 different communities that we knew were going to work on it. All of a sudden we heard, what's going on in Sheboygan? Something's going, what's, Alejo, did you talk to Sheboygan? I don't know. All of a sudden we learned about another community that actually spurred on another community, Manitowoc, to have their own Money Smart Week teams. And they just started and they ran with it. And they impressive, really. So they even won a Governor's Financial Literacy Award for that. Just by putting it out there, a governor's proclamation, this is the week we're going to focus on Money Smart. And people just said, yeah, we get this, we'll do this. We can do this. So just by having that out there meant a lot. Getting started, state government, and celebrating success. Celebrating success. So we encouraged our teams when they started their week off to have kickoff events. And some of that was for media exposure, invite the media, and some of that was really for, hey, these are the volunteer organizations and the people who were involved in putting on this Money Smart Week. Let's give ourselves a pat on the back. Let's find each other. Maybe we'd have the First Lady of your state could come, or someone else could say, hey, thank you, folks, for putting this on. That's wonderful. And so that motivates people, keeps up the interest. After the Money Smart Week was done, there was a variety of different things for ways people celebrated their accomplishment. They had a wrap-up meeting where they talked about that. Maybe they actually went out for lunch at that point. Some groups actually went to, like an after-work cocktail hour and just kind of toasted their success. We had a statewide wrap-up meeting where we could meet each other, have a free lunch, and celebrate the fact that we accomplished that. That's important to keep the spirit up, keep the momentum up. That's key. So we also had Governor's Financial Literacy Awards. They're free, easy to do. Governors like that. So we hand these out. And people could come again to the executive residence, get their picture taken, and so on. So we're able to recognize individuals and organizations who are involved in Money Smart Week during the week or even throughout the year. So that's another idea that you could do to celebrate your success. So we also, when we had these statewide wrap-up meetings, we learned from each other. What worked in your community? What worked in your community? What didn't work? What can we do better? So that was an opportunity to think about those things. So this is the one slide that has a bunch of numbers on it. And one thing we learned, if you look at, our main measurements were how many events, attendance, teams, partners, and then how many surveys we were able to collect. So we thought when we first started, oh, events, we got to have a lot of events for people to go to, so let's get people to events. And then from 2006 to 2007, we really emphasized that, and we realized, boy, it's a lot of work to put on all these events. Holy moly. And sometimes no one shows up at something because it wasn't marketed quite right. And so that hurts. So then we thought, we got to get more efficient and smarter. Let's have less events, but figure out how we're going to get more people to those events. And so we did. So just by learning different ways of doing things. One thing they did in Fond du Lac, Shelley, raise your hand, which I thought was really interesting. They just said, instead of having all these different places for people to go in the community, we're going to pick the library. And we're going to have this grid. And we're going to say, Monday through Friday or whatever, these are the times. And here's the subjects. And so all these different community members, all the different partners can come and present and do things and help sponsor those things. But the community, and maybe repeat some of those. So if you can't make it on Monday, you can do it on Wednesday. And so it was very efficient. The public knew where to go. And that worked out well. And so I think that's something that the other teams have picked up on. Oshkosh thought that was a good idea, so they're doing it. You showed them how. So neat things like that. Just wanted to see. Oh, another point was outside factors. In 2008, people were very, very, very nervous about the state of affairs and the financial meltdown. And so look what happened to the numbers in 2008. All of a sudden, they got really big. So that, to me, proves that people are looking for unbiased, local financial education. And that year, too, we launched a couple of hotlines. So now you could call on the phone, didn't have to go somewhere, didn't have to raise your hand in a group of people and say, I don't know this, or I'm on the verge of bankruptcy, I'm about to foreclose, what do I do? They can make that phone call to a team of experts and actually talk to an individual with a very, very specific need, maybe get some information immediately, or maybe get a referral to somewhere local that was going to be unbiased. I thought that was a really great innovation. We had 1,200 calls in 2 different locations in 2008. So we're trying to keep that going to some degree. So that's a hotline. I thought that was a neat idea. So get back to my other notes. And if you had questions too, I mean, you can feel free to chime in at any time. So get started, involve state government, celebrate success, learn by doing and from each other, try things, and then keep it fresh. Because after a couple of years of doing this, we want to make sure we don't start saying, well, it's Money Smart Week again, okay. What are we going to do this year? Because we're coming up to our 6th year now, and so we want to keep things fresh. So what do? We try to do some interesting things. This is Green Bay Packer, Donald Driver, who came to a school. It was very electrifying. Media was like crazy. All the students, you could just feel the energy in the school. This is South Milwaukee High School. Oh, did I mention the Packers won the Super Bowl last week? I forgot about that. So that was a neat idea. And of course, we have some dignitaries there and so on that showed up. We turned our Capitol green. And that gets you free media, too, because someone will put the camera on the Capitol. Oh, why is the Capitol green? Oh, well, it's Money Smart Week. Oh, of course, okay. So, in fact, we started it green well before the week started so that people would tune in to what is Money Smart Week? Oh, what can I do something? So that was kind of neat. Here's an idea. It's really about reading, and it's called The Big Read. But we picked a book that was a financial literacy type book, talked about money. And so this is an idea where maybe it's at the locations at Barnes & Noble or at a library or whatever, and we're talking about literacy. And so it's kind of a different way, a different approach to say, oh, well, reading's important, and maybe you already have these kinds of big reads. Just pick a book that talks about money, and all of a sudden you have a campaign within a campaign. And so it's kind of a neat idea, and each year it kind of grew. And so other planning teams decided to say, hey, good idea, can we get in on that? And so there's a big poster with several different cities on it that have the big read. Another interesting idea, just bring some celebrity status. We had Oprah's Debt Diet Coach come to the Fox Cities. It was very well attended. You had to do a lot of fundraising for these people, but it creates a lot of pizzazz. It gets on the local news. It's on the papers and so forth. A lot of different ways to promote Money Smart Week. That's actually a billboard. We have billboards and yard signs and different things. Different communities try different ways to promote it. We have Penny the Pig. Anyone tried Penny the Pig yet? Penny the Pig, really? Is it under another name? It's a 4-section pig?
Oh, yeah.
4-section pig? Okay. Very unbelievable. Okay, so there's sections in this piggy bank. So the idea is for young kids to say, well, when you save your money, you save it for different reasons. Long-term savings, short-term savings, maybe you want a bike, whatever, and you split it up that way. This has been a real phenomenon. You get these banks, you go to elementary school, maybe it's right after school. Alejo, I remember the one up in Manitowoc. Actually, it was Benjamin Franklin Elementary. And the whole school and their parents showed up after dinner and filled up the entire gymnasium, and they had talked about Penny the Pig. And then I think, did we put coins in them? So they're shaking them and everything like that. Really just leaves a big impression. Google Penny the Pig. Is it under another name? Money Savvy. That's right. So there's different versions. Neat idea. Another thing that happened was a financial makeover. So this is like reality TV. You pick a family, or they have to sign up, and then you pick one. And this was done through a credit union, I believe. And so they would say, okay, we're going to take this family who's in financial trouble, and actually if you go through this whole process with us, we'll give you $3,500. So, and then you could watch them on local media. How's the family doing? Okay, next week. Well, now what'd you do this week? What was your tip? How did you get through this bill that you had to pay, and so on. And eventually, after several months, you watch this family get better and improve, and so you learn, and you can celebrate things that way. So that's a pretty innovative idea. We had a thrift store fashion show, so we can have people show off their goods that they got at the thrift store. We've had a grocery store competition, so people are several different teams wearing different colored t-shirts, and they're going around with their shopping carts, and they have a certain amount of minutes to load up their cart, and whoever was more efficient shopping with their dollars wins. And so even the local grocery store owner put up as a prize a flat screen TV to make it more pizzazzy. So that's kind of cool. In another community, we had end-of-life expenses. This is your funeral expenses, things like this, things to think about. And they held it at a cemetery. And people showed up. They did. Can you imagine? And it was kind of a popular event, you know. That's the actual cemetery right there. I'm not making this stuff up. So that keeps it interesting. It also kind of says, let people in each community own it and feel it and come up with their own ideas. It'll be better than you can even imagine. We also stress, too, that after a couple of years, maybe it's time to pass the torch. If you had a chairperson of something, maybe it's time to give someone else a chance to be the chair. So we kind of keep that going. That's important, too. So this is all about giving back to the community, giving people the tools they need to make their own financial decisions and goals and make those possible. So that's what it's all about. So if your community is like this big oil tanker, get the job done. We're going to do it. Or maybe it's like this cruise ship. You celebrate a lot and maybe, or leisurely, have a good attitude. Or if your community is like this military aircraft carrier, just well-tuned, everything's perfect. Or if your community is like the SS Minnow. Whatever it might be, we can be the influence to guide and lead our communities to a more financially fit world. Thank you, and we'll leave it at that. Questions? Sure, questions, comments, jeers. What?
Yeah, that was very impressive. I actually live on the Illinois-Wisconsin border. You make me want to jump up to Beloit.
Oh, there you go.
That's nice.
We like it when you spend your money in our state. So.
Yes, travel there often. So I was looking at your numbers, and I noticed a big jump in partners in the last year, from I believe it was 2009 to 2010. I wanted to know if there was anything significant that happened.
Okay. Yes, and what we count as a partner is you go to the website, you load up your information, and you agree not to sell anything, you become a partner. And so let's say you have an event at a library, so they're a partner. It was sponsored by a local credit union, and the presenter is actually from credit counseling. So now there's 3 people putting on that event, because we want to share that they really are all partners, and so we want to document that. That's how we count that number. I'm not sure why it jumped the way it did between 09 and 10. Any guesses, Shelley or Cindy? Or
Other than recognition, I think is a very good thing.
yeah, and we've been counting it the same way every year. So, I was looking at attendance. I'm sorry. Yeah,
We have more coalition, right?
right. Oh, there it is. Yep, more teams. More teams.
Ah, okay.
And if there's a part of the state that was like, how come they're not doing anything? Then we call up people and say, that's another area where state government or regulators can call up your credit union league or your bankers association and say, how come you guys aren't doing that? You're a statewide bank. You should have someone on every team in the state. Why not? And they're like, oh yeah, that's a good idea. Okay. So that's really, I'm not kidding. But someone has to make the call. Someone has to point it out. We put up on our website, which we're going to migrate to the Chicago Federal Reserve website for 2012. All that we put up the chairs and their contact information. So we have 20. So you go there, each region, you can pick one. And so when people call me up, how can I get involved? I'll just say, where do you live? Oh, just go to the website, call this person, and they'll get you plugged in locally. So that way, like a big bank or state agency or something can say, oh, do we have someone in this area, in that area, and that area? Oh, I mean, we're there. We might as well, and they can actually look on the website and find out who's on that team. And that helps really fast get people. All of a sudden, the chair gets a phone call. Hey, I'd like to volunteer, and I'm going to bring some money too. Okay, you're in. So, other questions?
That was going to be my question. How difficult was it to raise funds to pay for a lot of the website events?
For one, having the Federal Reserve in Chicago, they were very helpful financially. Because we had state government involved in my agency, we paid for the website. We decided we wanted to try our own website so that we could promote financial literacy throughout the year. I don't know. I think people go to Google when they want to find out stuff about financial literacy. So, but like I said, we're going to migrate to the Chicago Fed. But we paid for the website, and then we try to make up the differences in things that people need. So I'll talk to the chairs and be like, oh, we need some money for radio advertising. Okay, how much? And we try to do it that way. So I think in total in Wisconsin for our agency, it's about $25,000 that we hand out to the different groups.
I would also say go to the fundraising session.
Yeah. Yep. Good idea.
I have a question over here. I was given this microphone.
You're good
Can you
at it.
tell us a little bit about how you promote Money Smart Week since it's statewide? Is everything branded Money Smart Week Wisconsin?
Yes.
And then when you had the Packers fellow, is he promoting Money Smart Week Wisconsin? And is that something we can do for Chicago to do Money Smart Week Illinois and not just Money Smart Week Chicago? I guess we have a lot of state synergies, especially in central Illinois. We have 4 or 5 campaigns alone, and I think we're missing out on some of that branding opportunity.
So yes, Money Smart Week Wisconsin. That's how we promote it. And even some groups were kind of thinking, well, we want to do it this way. And we're like, branding 101. If we all call it the same thing and we use the same brand, and the state is sanctioning it and the Federal Reserve's sanctioning it, that's going to give you more credibility than anything else. So why wouldn't you want to use that brand? So that was kind of a real sticking point. It was kind of like, yep, that's what we're going to do. And then to get a Green Bay Packer, there's different ways, different avenues you can go to get different celebrities, and you have to use your contacts or whatever. This one happened to be through Financial Football, which is a Visa program, and they actually do this. So you could call up Visa. I can get you a contact name. It's a Practical Money Skills for Life, Jason Alderman. And so they do this anyway. So we kind of said, well, we want it during Money Smart Week, and that's how we did it.
I'll also just answer the Illinois-Chicago question. That's something we've been talking about for a long time now, because Chicago is the only city within our district. Well, that's not true. you have the Quad Cities, the Illinois and Iowa, that represent a unique case because we had cities on both sides of the state line, so we really can't call it Iowa or Illinois. So we have a specialized branding for Quad Cities, and we've maintained the specialized branding for Chicago, mostly because it was the flagship program and it was so large. And we just don't know how Money Smart Week Illinois will play in Chicago. And I know there's always that dynamic of Chicago versus the rest of the state. I know. But it's certainly something that we continue to talk about, that we go on the table.
You raise a good point, too, because we have some cities that are very close to each other. And we said, why don't you guys work together? And it's like, oh, we don't go there. I'm like, really? Okay. Didn't know that, so now we have 2 teams, instead of 1. So you do what works. Well, thank you for your attention, and I'm always available. I have the luxury of being a state employee that gets to work on financial literacy as my full-time job. I would encourage other states to do that. When Harvard Kennedy School viewed us as an innovation in government, I think that's something we should do. State government is involved in every aspect of our lives, and not to have some focus on financial literacy formalized at your state, I think is a missed opportunity. So if you have someone like that, or can encourage that, or there's an opportunity to put that in your state budget, or somebody, that's given me the freedom, and then find someone to go to do the work. I think it's very important. So we can do that. That's my pitch.